Hello friends, this is your friend back with a new fanfic. What if Naasica reincarnated in Naruto and chose to become the villain? Madara became her mentor, episode 2. If you like this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and leave your thoughts in the comments. Now, let's start. Don't be so silly, grandmother said, a teasing light in her eyes. It doesn't suit you. I smiled coyly, cupping my hands together and lifting the flower up to my face. I puffed out my cheeks and blew as hard as I could. Grandmother giggled with glee as the flower erupted all over the kitchen, showering us in white powder. Her laughter became infectious and I started to giggle with her. Her eyes rested on me, warm and loving. Silly little sapling, grandmother scolded me. Now watch and learn. Grandmother scooped up some flour and blew on it. Once again a shower of flour started to descend around us. My giggles took a higher pitch, as I struggled to contain my glee. My hands clapped together and I applauded how she managed to cover the entire kitchen with flour. Grandmother bowed slowly. She then straightened up, a smile on her face. She reached out a wrinkled hand and brushed back a stray strand of hair from my face. I love you, my little sapling. ... You cannot stay here forever, Madara whispered, brushing back a stray strand of hair from my face. His eyes bore into me, even if I could not see them, I knew that much. The knowledge you possess, we will need time to devise our plan, but I know this much, you will be of better use if you are in a firm position in Konohagakure. I grabbed his hand, holding it in my hands. The skin was still calloused and rough, despite all the years Madara hadn't actually used it for difficult work. It was a hard hand, a hand that had taken many lives, but hopefully, it would be a hand that saved many lives, too. I understand. But how will I contact you again? We cannot rely on Zetsu. We do not need to, Madara said softly. You know how Zetsu is able to move from one place to another. He melds with the earth, with the trees and ground and scatters his cells. He traverses from one place to another almost instantaneously, and you also know that Zetsu is made entirely of Hashirama's cells, as well as the Jubi's shell. Are you saying that because Hashirama is my grandfather? Because I have his cells? Not quite, Madara responded. It requires the wood nature ability to utilize this. The Jubi's chakra allows Zetsu to phase through anything, but the wood nature alone will permit him to traverse through wood. That made sense. Yamato was able to utilize something similar. Something Konoha has plenty of. So I must learn how to meld with the trees and travel like Zetsu. Yes. When you have mastered it to the point where you can move from Konoha to here quickly and efficiently, then you will return to Konoha. I nodded my head. Yes, Madara-sama. You will stay in Konoha. You will grow. You must rise through the ranks and reach the highest position you can. If you want to be Hokage, then be Hokage, but just know you need power. Do whatever it takes to reach that. My stomach churned with nerves. If that is what is necessary, then I will do it, Madara-sama. But how can I reach those ranks? Present yourself as a powerful kunoichi, Madara said simply. You are a woman trapped in a child's body, use that intelligence of yours to your advantage. You have the wood style, use that to the fullest. You are the Senju heiress, and you will learn seals from an Uzumaki seal master. Use all of your resources. I felt sick, and fear ran through me. What Madara was suggesting was the exact opposite of what I had been doing. He was saying to draw attention to myself, to paint a giant target on my back saying, look at me. Look at me. I've got Hashirama's chakra and I'm a rising prodigy. Look at me. Look at me. My gut instinct screamed for me to do anything, but draw attention to myself. Especially with Danzo and Orochimaru on the prowl. Madara must have sensed my fear because he said, almost soothingly, Orochimaru and Danzo would not dare. After this kidnap attempt, you will be guarded zealously. It will be hassle enough for you to slip out to meet me, and I doubt Orochimaru or Danzo somehow are capable of developing a teleportation technique. Not to mention, I will be training you. You will not be an easy target, and with time, you will not be a target at all. A thrill ran through me at that. Madara was the kind of teacher that took a dead last like Obito and turned him into Toby in less than 2 years. Still, I didn't like the thought of drawing attention to myself. Not in the least bit, yet if it was necessary for our goal, if it was necessary for survival, as well as to achieve that world. I understand, I whispered, the words somehow heavier once up in the air. Madara seemed to eye me for a while longer. It will be impossible to hide your wood nature, you do realize that, don't you? I lowered my eyes. Hashirama was only able to separate his chakra into 2 natures after over a decade of training, and even then it took considerable effort. I'm sure you've already had trouble attempting to do so. I nodded my head. I doubt you'll be able to perform anything other than wood-style jutsus for at least a decade. More than likely longer, Madara said blandly, and I frowned. Furthermore, the fact that you were so easily emotional and that you broke to the point of confessing to me of your origins shows that you won't be able to play the idiot. Your intelligence will reveal itself in one form or another. Either you set yourself early as a prodigy and a wood user, or you try to uphold a mask that will be revealed one way or another. I flushed deeply at his words, white-hot shame rushing through me. Do not be ashamed, Madara said softly, bringing a finger to tilt my head back up to meet his eyes. You have not been trained for something like this. Now, enough of these words, you need to train. Zetsu, if you would. Right away, Madara-sama, I heard Zetsu laugh. I still had yet to actually leave the cave during the day. Zetsu would only take me out at night, and we only focused on my ability to transport myself. It was an odd thing, and I understood the theory behind it, but actually replicating it myself was odd. In essence, I was first converting my entire body, down to the atom, into chakra. Into wood-natured chakra. From there, I had to transition myself into the wood and allow myself to scatter, and focus on one single familiar tree, or thing of wood. Zetsu often lamented that he had no consciousness when he scattered, and that all he could focus on was the destination. He said it was an odd experience and at best, unsettling. When I was finally able to dissolve my hand, I had to concur with him. The time that I did not spend training, I spent discussing our moves with Madara. I understood why I needed to ascertain such a high position. I needed to be able to sway Konoha in some manner regarding certain things. I couldn't abuse my ability, and I could not sway everything too much, otherwise the future would become too muddled to accurately predict the outcome. There were things that we already decided to change. The first regarding Kabuto's resurrection of Madara. We both agreed that Madara being able to utilize the Edo Tensei effect's limitless chakra, can't die, etc. was advantageous, and he would be brought back through that originally. However, Madara was strongly against anyone adjusting his body to their advantage. Regarding Nagato, Madara had yet to give the boy his Rinnegan, and he was hesitant in doing so considering how sentimental he became and how he was capable of being swayed by Naruto's words. His Rinnegan alone did not have the ability to bring life to others, hence why he originally gave it to Nagato, because it needed to be saturated and thrive in a certain chakra, in Uzumaki chakra. There were a scarce few true Uzumakis available, and it had to be a pureblood Uzumaki's chakra, not watered down like mine, or Naruto's, and even fewer young enough to dismiss the different eyes. We needed Madara alive so he could become the Jinchuriki. Only an Uchiha could control the Jubi, and Madara did not want Obito to become the Jinchuriki, since he failed spectacularly. But we could only restore Madara to his living form with the Rinnegan, and the Rinnegan would only work if it had roughly a decade to rest inside a pureblood Uzumaki's chakra. Our options were severely limited, but we had time. For the moment, our priority was returning me to Konoha and getting me on the road to political sway. We would discuss what we would do next at a later date. It took a solid 2 weeks to get the jutsu down to Madara's satisfaction. Shorter than what I anticipated, but both Madara and Zetsu assured me it was because most of it was innate, and I had no choice but to agree. When night had fallen again, Madara walked slowly, carefully, wearily with me to the edge of the cave. We faced each other and the moonlight fell around us. When you are capable, return to me, Madara said. We will begin your training and discuss our next step. Yes, Madara-sama. Learn Fuinjutsu as soon as you are able. Yes, Madara-sama. Graduate as early as you can. Yes, Madara-sama. Achieve power in Konoha, waste no time. Step on whoever you need to. Yes, Madara-sama. Madara's lips slowly spread into a smile. I almost forgot, woman, you never told me your real name. I blinked slowly at that. I then felt my own smile crawl across my face, but it was not a pleased smile, or a happy smile. In the end, it doesn't matter. She died many years ago, and now there is only Naasica. And as Naasica, I will do whatever it takes to survive this world, and change it for the better. Madara cocked his head, his eyes dancing with dark mirth. Then I bid you farewell, Naasica. Until next time, Madara-sama. I won't fail you. My clothes were torn and ragged, mud and my blood covering it. My stomach was rumbling, and I knew that I would be passing out shortly. To prepare for my return in Konohagakure, Madara made sure to fabricate a story to tell upon my return. They would not subject me to a mind walk with the Yamanaka family. I was too young, my body was too immature, and such an attempt would only do more harm than good, so they would only have my story to go by. Which shouldn't be that hard to believe, considering all the evidence that I carried with me, and they had no real reason to disagree. I did not eat at all for the last 2 days before I left, and I ate very little the week before. I had already been fighting off the hunger pains and fatigue, and finally the actual use of the jutsu pushed me over the edge. I stumbled out of the bushes and onto the dirt path, my eyes staring up tiredly at the front gate. The moon was wide and full above me, and my eyes drifted up to it for a brief moment before settling onto the sign in desk. There were 2 shinobi who sat there, and I didn't recognize them. Moving one foot in front of the other, I began a debilitating stumble towards the gate, slowly, painfully, my head spinning and my stomach snarling and snapping at me. Finally, I reached the front gate and leaned heavily on the wooden doors. One of the shinobi spotted me with a frown on his face as he stood up. He looked puzzled, as though trying to understand what was occurring in front of him. Senju Naasica, I croaked, my voice barely above a whisper, and suddenly his eyes widened and his face cleared with understanding. Senju-sama, he said, flickering towards me just as I swayed and fell forwards. He caught me deftly. Oi, Tashu. Alert the Hokage, Senju-sama's return. I need to get her to the hospital. The shinobi's, Tashu, eyes were wide, and he gave a short nod before disappearing. I held my breath, my eyes flickering close, and I sagged in his arms. I made sure to keep my chest moving to give the impression I was breathing, however, from the lack of oxygen to my brain, coupled with my weak state, I fainted deliberately. I woke up bleary-eyed with an IV stuck in me, and I was cocooned in hospital blankets. Flowers adorned my bedside, and I recognized Kushina immediately. She was curled up in a chair at my side, snoring softly. She was still dressed in her pajamas, and a swift look out the window told me it was still night, but the moon was dipping down, so the sun would be up soon. A quick check on me told me that my condition was already improving. Tilting my head, I looked down at my hands and flexed them experimentally. It almost seemed surreal. Did I actually meet Uchiha Madara? Did I actually make a deal with him? With the demon of the Narutoverse? Sitting up slowly, I stared down at my lap, resting my hands in it. Was I prepared to face the consequences of my actions? But if all goes according to plan, there won't be any consequences. Not for you, or for anyone else. That was true. I could deal with the temporary wrongful deeds, if it meant in the long run things would be better. I had no reason to feel truly guilty. When the genjutsu was cast and the world was tamed, they would thank us. Thank you. After all, we would be saving them, wouldn't we? We're helping them. We're preventing anyone else from losing their loved ones. No one would have to hide in our world. No one would lose their family or friends or loved ones. No one would fight. No one would be hurt. It would be a utopia. True peace. A smile graced my lips and my eyes drifted over to Kushina's sleeping form. In the long run, that's all that mattered. The ends justified the means in this case, because the ends would grant all the means non-existent. Any mistakes along the way would be corrected. There was nothing for me, to lose. So I could deal with this now. I would swallow my reluctance and fear and follow Madara's plans. Because in the long run, it was for the best. It was the best way to survive this world, and it was the best way to obtain a truly happy ending. I patted Kushina's head softly and her eyes opened slowly. She stared up at me for a handful of seconds, still waking up, before her eyes snapped open widely and she lurched from her seat. Her arms wrapped around me and she pulled me close, squishing me into her. Resisting the urge to give a startled shout, I relaxed in her arms, closing my eyes. I inhaled her scent, soft rain, like grandmother's, but with a hint of ash, and weakly wrapped my own arms around her. "Hi," I mumbled into her chest. Kushina squeezed me more tightly. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." My hands moved up and down her back in a consoling gesture. "Shish. It's okay. I'm sorry. I should have looked for you sooner, It's okay," I said again. "I'm okay now, and that's all that matters. It's all right. I'm not mad. I'm not seriously injured. I'm okay." Kushina squashed me against her and I gave a choked cry. "Can't breathe." Kushina gave a watery laugh and pulled back, brushing a finger along my cheek. "What happened?" "It's a long story," I whispered quietly, my eyes trailing downcast. "I don't want to repeat it. Do you think you can wait until Hokage-sama or one of his officers comes here to hear my story?" "Of course, sweetheart," Kushina said softly. "Whatever you need, you should get some rest. I'll wake you when Hokage-sama comes." "Okay, Kushina-san," I said softly. There was a warm hand on my shoulder. I opened my eyes and found Kushina leaning over me. To her right, just a little behind her, was the Hokage. He dipped his head in greeting, offering me a comforting smile. "I'm sorry to wake you, Naasica. I shook my head. "It's fine, Hokage-sama. I understand you need to know what happened as soon as possible." "Are you ready?" Kushina asked, a worried frown on her face. I offered her a wan smile. "I am. I was on my way home. It was dark and I couldn't see very well. Then all of a sudden something hit me, in the back of the head," I said hollowly, my hands lifting up and touching the back of my head. I tried to will up all the fear and resentment I had felt at the time. It was harder than I imagined, but I was able to force some emotion in my story. The next thing I know, I'm tied and being carried away. I was knocked out again. When I woke up, I stopped, burying my face in my hands and shaking my head, as if trying to dispel the dark memories. I'm sorry. There was fighting. And blood. I was scared. I don't remember very clearly how I got out, just that I did and that I started running. We were in a forest, you see, and I just started running. I don't know how long I ran, but I ran until I just couldn't. I remembered Oba-chan telling me that Konoha was to the east. I figured if I went east I could find a road or something and come back home. I let out a shaky breath, lowering my hands and curling them into shaking fists. I'm sorry. I don't remember much of my time in the forest, but I did find something out. The Hokage eyed me for another moment. What did you find out, Naasica? I held up my hand and watched as it slowly transformed into wood. Kushina gasped and Hiruzen's eyes widened. Kushina grabbed at my hand, staring at it with a mixture of fascination and worry. Naasica-chan, you have. I think so, I said quietly. I just thought you should know. I don't know how to use it very well, and… Hiruzen cleared his throat, his eyes narrowing back to their normal size again. I am certain we could find you a proper trainer, Naasica-chan. The Mokuton is a very powerful Kekkei Genkai and Konoha is lucky to have been blessed with another user. It was Hashirama and Tobirama who taught me, and I can remember a few techniques he used. If anything, I'm sure I could assist you. Even with your busy schedule. I asked, surprised. Probably not directly, Hiruzen admitted, but I'm sure I could write up a training regime if need be. I bowed my head. Thank you, Hokage-sama. I am honored. Kushina hesitated a moment before she sat on the bed with me. Remembering that I was a child who had gone through a traumatic event, I crawled out of my blankets and buried my face in her side, wrapping my arms around her. She pulled me close, hugging me tightly. I'm sorry, I mumbled to her. I'm sorry, you must have been so worried. Don't apologize, Kushina said quickly. You have no reason to. The Hokage cleared his throat. I'm sorry for having you relive your time away, Naasica. I'll be taking my leave. Wait, Hokage-sama, I whispered, looking away from Kushina and at him with wide, watery eyes. I never want to have to go through that again. I want to start training and I know children aren't allowed in the academy, yet, but, He gave me a warm smile. These are troubling times, Naasica. I must confer with the council, first, but if you cannot enter the academy, I am certain we could find you a suitable instructor. Good day, Kushina-san, Naasica. When he had left, Kushina wiped away my eyes. Tears had gathered, I was quite proud of myself. I had managed to conjure them on the spot. Are you sure you want to enter the academy? It's a big decision, Naasica-chan. I'm certain. I want to train and grow strong, I said confidently. Kushina gave me a bright smile and stood up, her hands clenched into fists and a fire lit in her eyes. I understand. I'll help you in whatever way I can, Databane. Kushina blushed brightly at her speech tick, realizing she got overexcited again. I smiled in fondness at her, and she rubbed the back of her head sheepishly. So, I can help you start when we get home. We'll pick up some kunai and shuriken training along the way home and I'll show you how to properly use them. Can we purchase a target dummy? I asked hesitantly. We can use the Senju funds. Kushina nodded her head. Sure thing. Let's see, you can start doing stretches in the morning with me. I know all the good ones. She winked at me. Oh, and when you come home from the academy, I have no doubt you'll be allowed to enter when it starts back up again in a few weeks. I can teach you some taijutsu. It'll be a while before we move on to ninjutsu, though. I wonder if you'll be able to learn chakra chains. Chakra chains, I echoed. An Uzumaki trait. It requires a lot of the Uzumaki chakra to use, though, so sometimes a mixed clan kunoichi shinobi can't use it, Kushina explained. I'm sure you'll be able to, though. Your Ka-chan was Uzumaki, too, like your Obaa-chan. She was. I asked, surprised. That's keeping it close. Kushina snorted. The Uzumaki clan is so big, some people can't even trace what their relationship is with everyone. Kushina paused. Was. The Uzumaki was so big. Kind of like the Senju clan, right? I asked softly. A somber silence fell. Kushina cleared her throat. Well, I'll talk to the nurse and see when we can get you out of here. We never did furniture shopping, did we? We'll pick out the things for your room, too. And some new clothes, because it seems you've outgrown your other ones. I smiled at her. I'd like that. Grandmother was seated in the shade under the tree. It was the largest tree in our backyard, and her favorite. Tsunade was sitting next to her, curled up beside her and flipping through a book. I was holding Batman tightly and spinning around and around. It was childish and silly, but it was so simply delectable. I loved spinning. And when grandmother continued to blow out the dandelions, causing the little seeds to spin around me, it was a childish miracle to me. It was beautiful, pure, and nice, and I adored it. I came to a stop and stumbled and fell. Tsunade giggled quietly and I stood up wobbly. A smile lit up my face as I staggered into grandmother and Tsunade's laps, spreading across both of them and stretching. Grandmother and Tsunade exchanged sly glances before swooping down and starting to tickle me. Stop. I laughed. Please. Never, they chorused. ... Kushina gripped my hand tightly as she guided me out of the hospital. Let's go furniture shopping first. I'll make some clones to set it up at the apartment while we go clothes and training shopping, Databane. I giggled at her enthusiasm, before a yawn escaped me. Okay. Kushina's smile widened and she started to sprint, practically dragging me with her. Oh, this is going to be so much fun. I haven't gone shopping in, well, it's been a while, Databane. Actually, I did go grocery shopping, but I mean the fun kind of shopping, you know. I continued to smile in bemusement as Kushina rambled on. I didn't care too much for shopping, but it seemed to make Kushina happy, so I would try to enjoy myself. It was early afternoon when we finally came to my new home, Kushina's apartment. It was a fairly decent size, considering it was an apartment. 2 bedrooms, and the kitchen and dining room were one room. There was a little half wall that was about the same height as me when I stood on my tiptoes dividing the kitchen and living room, and only one bathroom. Are you hungry? Want me to fix you anything to eat? Kushina asked, moving to my room, carrying most of the bags. I followed behind her, carrying the rest of the bags. I could eat, I admitted, entering my new room. I kept the same bed from my previous home, but I had a new desk, bookshelf and collection of toys, stuffed animals. I doubt I would ever play with them, but I was still a child and I knew children enjoyed new toys. I also had new sheets and some new scrolls. Kushina gave a hum. All right, if you want to start putting your clothes away, I'll get started on lunch. Okay, Nei-chan, I murmured, and Kushina brushed past me, heading to the kitchen. I meticulously poured out the new clothing, folding them as I had many times before and placing them in the drawer. When I was done with them, I placed all the empty bags in one bag and set it by the door. I then opened the training bags, pulling out the packs of basic kunai and shuriken and laying them neatly on my desk. The training dummy was rolled up in a summoning scroll, ready to be dismissed and called upon whenever it was being used or not. Carrying the scroll tightly to my chest, I headed out into the living room, the smell of fresh meat penetrating my smell. I placed it in a bare spot, against the wall, and unrolled it. Lunch is almost ready, Kushina called from the kitchen after noticing me. Why don't you set the table? Okay, I said. Once lunch was done, Kushina guided me to the living room after I grabbed my kunai set. She brought me 5 meters away from the target practice and moved my feet and body into the correct position. She took my hand and gently placed the kunai in it, adjusting my grip on it. She then walked to the target. All right, Na-chan. Take your time with each throw. Let's focus on landing hits on the target, then we'll focus on more precise hits, and then we'll work on speed. Go ahead and try, focus on the target, and throw. I'll catch it before it damages anything outside the target. I shifted my weight and looked down at the surprisingly light kunai. I then threw back my arm and... It was a good thing Kushina was a kunoichi, or she wouldn't have caught it before it went out the window behind me. When night had fallen and Kushina had finally gone to bed, I heard her move down to her bedroom and waited 30 minutes. I crawled out of my bed, dropping low to the wooden floor. I actually had to argue against Kushina buying me a rug. Quickly, I moved to my desk and grabbed my pouch of kunai and shuriken. Closing my eyes, I felt for other chakra around me, as Madara had taught me. Finding no one, I slowly melded into the wooden floor, traversing down the wooden walls before latching onto the root of a tree in the front of the apartment. I was lucky that Kushina's apartment had such a large tree outside her apartment. I could easily enter it and travel from tree to tree until I was outside of Konoha in only a handful of seconds. And with the multitude of trees, all of their roots connecting or touching, it wasn't long before I found myself walking out of the tree above the cave. I dropped down, tugging off my pajama shirt, and revealing the training kami I had underneath it. I pulled off my pajama pants and adjusted the training shorts I wore. I then folded both parts of my pajamas and placed them on a nearby rock. Madara-sama, I greeted, walking into the darkness. Welcome home. Bowing slowly, I murmured, they bought the story. What will you have me do now? Will you be accepted into the academy? Madara rasped, stepping towards me. I believe so. The academy starts up in 4 weeks, and after I showed Hiruzen my Kekkei Genkei, he seemed rather eager for me to start training. I could feel Madara smile, pleased. He would be a fool not to. Come, I've had Zetsu set up targets. Set your pouch down. You will be running for now. Yes, Madara-sama. After resting the pouch against the wall of the cave, I walked, barefoot, to the center and stood next to Madara. It was too dark to see him, but I could feel his chakra and hear him. I have placed numerous rocks around the cave. Circle around me, don't stop running, and try not to get too banged up. Each obstacle has something distinctive. If you focus your other senses hard enough, you will be able to dodge them successfully. Apprehension that Madara had created obstacles for me left my tongue silent. It would do no good to argue against his training. Running through the dark in essentially foreign land would help my reaction and maneuverability. If I could successfully dodge and adjust my pattern to unexpected surprises here, it would be beneficial on the battlefield. A place where plans never went as they should and a quick reaction time determined whether you lived or died. Not to mention it would force me to adapt to my other senses. If he had placed a scented stone, then if I smelt it soon enough, and I would be forced to, lest I wanted a bruise, then I had a given time to react quickly enough. But in order for that to happen, I would have to smell it first, a skill that would take practice and motivation. Suppressing a reluctant sigh, I started my jog. We will improve your endurance and your chakra control. When you come here, you will run on the new obstacle course until I say otherwise. After that, you will begin your stretches and cool down. From there, the lesson will differentiate. My feet connected against a hard rock and I was sent sprawling to the ground. I winced, feeling a sharp sting on both of my knees. Annoyance flared through me and I forced myself back up before bursting into another jog. 3 times a week, we will work on your precision with range. You will, of course, start off practicing this outside in the moonlight. I tripped and stumbled into the rock wall, my hands spread out to catch me, but in the process they dug into the spiky layer. I chewed on my bottom lip before readjusting myself, depending on Madara's voice, and started to run again. 1 day a week we will work on the theory of ninjutsu, genjutsu, or manipulation and battle strategy, and the other 3 days will be spent on chakra control. When you have, my feet dug into a particularly sharp stone and I gasped from the surprising pain. Swallowing roughly, I lifted my foot up from the floor and pulled out the stone, tossing it to the side. I am bringing shoes next time. Reached a satisfactory level in one of the aforementioned areas, we will move on to a new schedule. And continue to run barefoot. This will help build up your pain tolerance. Oni-sensei, I muttered under my breath. I, of course, expect you to use your time outside of our meetings to train, Madara continued smoothly. After you have reached the appropriate status, and have learned enough in diplomacy, manipulation and coercion, you will attempt to ally yourself with the clan heirs and heiresses. Yes, Madara-sama, I said, after realizing that he finished. My forehead slammed into a stalactite. I creeped out of my bedroom, scrapes and blood covering me. Already, I could feel the bruises that would form tomorrow. I would have to wear clothing that covered my arms and legs, to make sure Kushina didn't see the injuries until I could heal. One of the bright sides about being 3/4 Uzumaki, though, was the faster regeneration rate. The surface wounds would be taken care of by the time the next night training started. Spreading my weight out evenly, I pushed chakra into my feet and started walking along the wall. The floor creaked, before I reached the bathroom. I opened the bathroom door and slowly dropped down onto the tiles, before I closed it and turned on the lights. Dirt and blood caked the majority of my form, mostly dirt, though. The blood was most common from my hands, knees, and feet. I muttered irritably under my breath, taking out a washcloth and turning on the water. I'll need to see if Madara can make some subtle silencing seals for the bathroom. I'd rather Kushina didn't suddenly hear the water running and decide to check it out. I winced as I started cleaning the wounds. I'll also need to see if I can create some antibiotic ointment, I thought sullenly. For now, I'll use the tube we have here. After I had thoroughly cleaned, disinfected, and bandaged myself, I finally changed into my pajamas, hiding the dirty training clothes under my mattress, and crawled into bed for a few hours of sleep. Wakey wakey. Creaking my eyes open, I clearly looked up at Kushina. She was smiling brightly at me. Come on, sleepyhead. I made some breakfast. I'm up, I muttered tiredly, and Kushina gave a small hum before heading out to the dining room. I crawled out of bed, making sure all of my bruises and scratches were covered with my pajamas, before I followed after her. The smell of pancakes, a pleasant surprise that this world had a crossover of my old world's food, as well as the standard Japanese-style eggs and ham greeted me warmly. I gave a fleeting smile at that, before taking my seat at the small table with Kushina. She was already dressed. I still have another week of leave before I have to return to active duty, Kushina told me, nibbling on her eggs. There was a soft knock at the door and Kushina glared at it, her temper flaring. As she stood up to answer it, she muttered crossly, now who would come knocking this early while I'm trying to have a nice meal with my. Throwing open the door, Kushina looked prepared to give the person a verbal lashing, but stopped when she found that it was none other than the Hokage. Hokage-sama. I wasn't expecting you. He smiled at her. It's quite alright. I won't be long. I just wanted to stop by personally to inform you that Naasica Haim will be attending the New Year's class in the fall. She'll be a couple years younger than the others, as you have to be 6 to enter the academy, but I'm sure she'll do well. Also, Konoha will be posting a temporary Anbu guard until she has entered. You understand. We did. Until I officially started training in the Shinobi arts, entering the academy, I was a civilian, regardless of my family. However, when I began training, I was considered a shinobi, or kunoichi, and Konoha had no obligation to use their most elite warriors to protect me unless they knew I was in imminent danger, or I was paying for it like grandmother technically did. And the Hokage knew I would never pay for someone to follow me around and protect me. I was too proud, and I was the Senju clan heiress. It would be considered disgraceful unless I was too old or sick to properly defend myself. Yes, of course, Hokage-sama, Kushina managed, still bewildered. Is there anything else, Hokage-sama? No, I'll be taking my leave, he said. Once the Hokage had left, I could still feel the Anbu's chakra just outside. My eyes narrowed in annoyance at this change, but I quickly put on a smile when Kushina turned around. Just as Madara predicted, I thought darkly. When I don't show up tonight, Zetsu will arrive tomorrow night and borrow some of my chakra. He'll act as my clone while I sneak off to train with Madara. Entering the academy already, Kushina said, smiling at me. What do you want to do? Celebrate. I shook my head, recalling Madara's words. Train. I need to get stronger. Kushina's smile slipped as she stared at me in confusion. You sure? Do you not support this? I asked innocently, feigning a little hurt. Kushina was quick to blush and shake her head. You'll always have my support. I don't want you to lose yourself in the process, Kushina said gently, moving to squat down to look at me at eye level. You're still a child, Na-chan. I straightened up. I am the Senju heiress. I do not have time to. Kushina rolled her eyes and ruffled my hair. Don't take your duties so seriously. For now, you're still a child. Don't waste what time you have, especially considering you'll be entering the academy so soon. If you truly want to spend your time training, I won't object, but I will have to strongly encourage you to balance out your time. I bit my bottom lip. I would actually rather not do what she wants me to do. I don't want to play with children so below my intelligence, nor do I want to degrade myself to act so childishly. One of the few benefits to being an heiress was that you were expected to act more like an adult, something that's far easier for me. However, I have a feeling it would seem odd if I objected too much. After all, I am still a child to her. I don't want to draw the wrong kind of attention. I need to get stronger. Not just for myself, but maybe, you're right. I don't want to waste my childhood. Kushina beamed. I fidgeted, pretending to be shy and embarrassed. But I don't know how. I've never really, outside of you, Nei-chan and Oba-chan, I just. Kushina's eyes widened with realization before rounding into sympathy. You've never really played with children your age, have you? Willing the blood rushed to my cheeks, like Madara taught me to. I blushed and shook my head. It's always important you know how to control your appearance, Madara had said. You can never truly trust anyone, except me. Especially considering our plan. If they found out, they would turn on you instantly. They are your enemy, even if they smile at you, even if they say they mean well, even if they promise to be your friend, they are your enemy. Konoha is your mission, and you are infiltrating it. There will be times where you must hide how you feel, and times where you must express what you don't feel. Before you return, I will show you the basics. It helped that I actually knew some of the basics. Part of being a teenager, I suppose, was learning how to effectively lie. Or perhaps that was just me. It helped, I suppose, that I had to learn to do that all over again while I still lived with grandmother and Tsunade, for some cases. Kushina looked down, frowning. Then as if remembering I was there, she forced a smile on her face and beamed at me. Don't worry, Databane. We'll figure it out. How about we train now, though? I smiled. I would like that, Nei-chan. For Anbu. I know. I have enough now, go on ahead. Okay. Just until the academy. Madara asked, as I began my stretches. I was panting heavily from the run. At my weak nod, he seemed to frown. Annoying, but doable. You will need to learn to make a wood clone after you enter the academy. It would take nothing less than Zetsu to fool the Anbu, but a clone will do just fine for Kushina. Why yes, Madara-sama, I panted. We fell into silence as I finished my stretches. When I was done, I stood before Madara, my back straight and eyes lowered, as a sign of respect. I almost wanted to put my hands behind my back and stand in attention, but the traditions in this world demanded differently. Today we will work on chakra control. I know you have already started tree walking. We will go on from that, Madara said, turning and heading outside the cave. I trailed behind him, my bare feet still stinging from the run. Madara finally stopped before a tree, gesturing to it. Begin climbing. When you reach the top, turn back around and come back down. I want to see how well you do first. I nodded. It took a split second to gather the necessary chakra into the bottom of my feet before I began to climb. I walked slowly, carefully, my brow furrowed. When I finally returned to the bottom, and stepped off, Madara snorted. We're going to have our work cut out for us, Madara muttered. Alright, go to the top and when you reach there, grab a leaf. Using your chakra, stick the leaf to the tips of each of your fingers. I tilted my head, blushing sheepishly. I actually haven't succeeded in the leaf exercise, at all. I could tell. My cheeks warmed in shame. You need finer chakra control. While you have enough chakra to use in spades, you still need to be able to maximize the minimum required. Eventually, you will face an opponent who can outlast you in terms of chakra, and you will be forced to carefully measure what chakra you use. In order to do this, you need near-perfect chakra control. Besides, when we move on to ninjutsu and ratio changes, the better control you have, the easier. You will not return down until you have succeeded. What the hell are ratio changes? What if I don't? What if I run out of chakra before I complete the exercise? Then you better not land on your head. Yes, Madara-sama. Madara smiled sardonically. This will help with your landing techniques, as well. Learn to land without using chakra. I suppressed a sigh, choosing instead to turn away and begin the climb. It took exactly 3 days before Kushina managed to snag a play date for me. When she first told me, I had to suppress my annoyance, choosing to outwardly express hesitancy and nerves. Within minutes of informing me, Kushina had swooped me up in her arms and had me dressed, groomed and styled up before hurrying me off to the park. I scarcely had time to grab my kunai pack as we left. Trust me, Kushina said, carrying me to the park and hopping from roof to roof, you'll like this. He's a training nut, just like you. Oh my god, did she stick me on a play date with Guy? Then again, at least I could train in my taijutsu. When we reached the park, Kushina set me down and brushed down my more stubborn locks of hair. She adjusted my robes, untying my orange obi and then retying it into a neat bow on my left side. Alright, are you ready, Na-chan? I forced a blush on my face, lowering my eyes and fidgeting with the hems of my black robes. I guess, Ne-chan. If you really think this is a good idea. Kushina clapped her hands together, beaming. Excellent, Databane. Now come on. I can sense their chakras over here. In the direction she pointed, I immediately sharpened my hearing and sense of smell, channeling the chakra like I had before in Madara's cave. To-san, I don't want to do this. I know you don't, but just give it a try. Senju Haim is like you, from what Kushina's told me. I bet you two will get along great. She's a girl, To-san. She likes training. I bet she's stupid. Young man. I rolled my eyes, having heard enough. Kushina had taken my hand and guided me around some hedges, before saying, hey, you two. Hitaki Tsukumo grinned widely at Kushina, a hand placed on the top of young Hitaki Kakashi's head. The boy's black eyes locked onto me as he eyed me suspiciously. I wiggled my fingers in a shy hello, willing another blush across my cheeks. Hello, Kushina-san, Tsukumo greeted. This is my son, Kakashi-chan. Kakashi-chan, introduce yourself. Kakashi thrust his hands in his pocket and stepped in front of Tsukumo, glaring at the ground. I'm Hitaki Kakashi. I feigned embarrassment, looking shyly away. Kushina nudged me in the back and I finally stepped towards Kakashi. I'm Senju Naasica. Silence fell between the two and Tsukumo cleared his throat pointedly. Kakashi sighed. As if swallowing a painful pill, he choked out. Do you want to go play with me? I stared at Kakashi. To all eyes I looked like a fit of shyness had overtaken me, but in reality I was thinking carefully. It was true that I had not completed Madara's lessons in manipulation and coercion, but I was fairly confident that I could at least befriend Kakashi to some extent on my own. He would grow to become a powerful shinobi, no one could deny that, and he was even favored to be the Hokage after Tsunade and before Naruto. He would make a wonderful ally, and at the moment, I had a chance to start that alliance. Actually, I whispered, blushing brightly, do you maybe wanna train with me instead? Kakashi blinked and Kushina rolled her eyes. Tsukumo looked amused while Kakashi's brow furrowed as he tried to decipher my rushed words. When the young Hitaki finally did, a triumphant gleam took to his eyes. Yeah, I'd like that. I brought my own kunai and shuriken, I said shyly, lowering my eyes. Two-san told me I wasn't allowed to bring my own set, Kakashi said, adding a glare to his father. Tsukumo rubbed the back of his head sheepishly. You can share with me, I offered, holding out my pouch. We should go to the trees, get out of the way of the other kids. I don't want to run out in front while we're training. Kakashi nodded his head sagely. Good idea. Come on, let's go. All right. I hid my smile as Kakashi grabbed my hand and started pulling me away. I can't say that went as I expected it to be, but I'm glad you and Kakashi had fun together, Kushina said, smiling at me. What would you say to another play date soon? I beamed brightly, wiping the sweat off my brow. Kakashi had been rather helpful in my training. Due to his size, which was roughly the same as mine, he'd known how to assist me with balancing better than Kushina did. And while Madara certainly could help me, he preferred I get it wrong, receive the punishment as incentive to get it right the next time, and continue the process until I got it right. Kakashi was nothing like that. Even if he was impatient, he was at least patient enough to take the time to adjust my position correctly each time. I would like that, I admitted honestly. I would like that very much. Kushina's eyes lit up. Oh, that's so wonderful. I'm so happy for you, Na-chan. What do you want for dinner? My treat. Kushina opened the door to our apartment, and I glanced back at the setting sun before entering the warm apartment. Udon, please. And I would like to make some dangos for dessert, too. Extra sweet. All right, Kushina said, beaming. Do you want to help me make the dangos? Yes, please. Kushina ruffled my hair. Then go wash up while I get started on dinner. Yes, Nei-chan. I wrapped up the bundles of dangos I had pretended to eat in a neat cloth and held it close to my body. It was odd transporting actual items with me, but not impossible. It was no different than transferring clothes. When I reappeared in front of the cave and entered inside, Madara greeted me with the usual glance. He lifted himself up from his chair and shuffled to the middle of the cave. Moving quietly, I headed towards him and presented the package of dangos. He took it gently, unwrapping it and eyeing its contents. Thank you. Are you ready to begin? Yes, Madara-sama. Start running. It was another week before my next play date. We met again at the park, only this time Kushina left to go shopping and Tsukumo stayed at the park with us, watching over us. Two-san's teaching me how to use the tanto, Kakashi told me, an almost childish bragging undertone in his voice. Hey, are you entering the academy? I said. I take it you are, too. Kakashi nodded his head in a short motion. Your grip is getting better. Nei-chan's been helping me a lot, too. My chakra controls better, I swear, I told him. Kakashi seemed to smile at me. I bet it's not as good as my control. We'll just have to see about that, I said. Be noticed. Show yourself as a strong kunoichi. Rise through the ranks. Gain power. Gain influence. Kakashi looked over at the tree, running towards it. The first one to the top wins, then. I burst into a sprint, channeling chakra into my calves and the bottom of my feet. In a few seconds, I had caught up to Kakashi and we both jumped up onto the tree, sprinting vertically. It seemed Kakashi was equally adept at manipulating chakra throughout his body to give him a physical advantage. The two of us ran neck to neck, both of us moving as quickly as we could. My left foot and Kakashi's right foot landed solidly at the top of the tree and we turned to look at each other, hearts pounding. Looks like a tie, Kakashi said approvingly, giving me an awarding glance. Quote. Guess you aren't so bad. I gave him a childish grin. Same to you. Do you know what class you'll be in? Kakashi nodded his head. 4A. My grin widened. Same. Know anyone else in that class? Kakashi shook his head. Just you now. But that's okay. I'm going to graduate in 1 year. Good luck with that, I giggled. Race you to the bottom. You're on. The following morning, there was an abrupt knock. I groaned from my bed and I heard Kushina walk past my bedroom, already dressed and prepared to leave for her mission for the day. I rubbed my eyes and yanked the covers off of me, just as I heard the front door open. Kushina was surprised, because whoever she saw made her gasp. Grabbing my silk house robe and tying it around me, I hurried into the front room, incredulous to who was there. Kushina moved aside, gesturing for the person to enter, and that's when I found out who it was. Jiraiya. Jiraiya's eyes landed on me, and it was like a visible weight was lifted off his shoulder. A huge smile fit on his face and he walked towards me, and kneeled down. Hey there, home. You gave everyone quite a scare, disappearing for almost 2 months. I shrugged, trying to understand why he was here. Perhaps he feels an obligation towards me. I reasoned. I was Tsunade's cousin and it seemed that she cared for me deeply. Even if she did ultimately choose to abandon me without even a goodbye. I'm fine now, I told him. I'm entering the academy soon enough, too. I heard. Just wanted to see for myself though, you know. Jiraiya laughed. It's good to see you again, home. Doing anything today? I looked at Kushina. She was smiling and she shook her head. No, I told him. Then how about I take you out? Jiraiya offered, wiggling his eyebrows. Come on, kiddo. I know just the places to go. I forced a smile on my face, blushing and looking away shyly. I guess. Hey, Ni-chan, seeing how I'm entering the academy, do you wanna help me? I wanna try the leaf exercise just like Nei-chan could, but... Jiraiya looked over at Kushina, as if seeking permission, and when she beamed he turned back at me and gave me the thumbs up. Consider it done. Go get dressed. We'll grab breakfast on our way out. Tsunade carried me, holding me close to her chest and humming. My eyelids were growing heavier with each note and I gave a large yawn. My hands curled into fists and I feebly wrapped my arms around her neck. I was too small to make it all the way around. My head was resting in the crook of her neck on her left side, my face turned out. My right hand carried up to my mouth, curled into a fist and I gripped her shoulder cloth nearest to my jaw, and my left hand gripped her pigtail lightly on her right side. Tsunade started to subtly rock me, still humming softly. My eyes finally drifted shut and another yawn escaped me. Several minutes passed before Tsunade began to carry me back to my room, all the while I continued to fight off sleep. She gently placed me in my crib, smiling lovingly and kissing the top of my forehead. Sweet dreams, little sapling, Tsunade whispered. I slipped off into a pleasant dreamland. I held up my hand proudly, each leaf sticking to each of my fingers, looking triumphant. I was covered in sweat and bruises, and scratches dotted my form, but I felt victorious. It had taken another 2 weeks since Jiraiya's surprise visit to finally be able to achieve the leaf exercise. In only a handful of days, I would be starting the academy, too, and my Anbu guards would be out of my life. Jiraiya had spent the majority of the day assisting me with my chakra control. He took me out for lunch and breakfast before dropping me off back home for dinner. He stayed for a couple days, but we did not train for the rest of them. He was determined to do more childish indulgences with me, such as swimming, going to the park, or the toy store, though that last one seemed more for him than me, considering the amount of single moms in that place. He had to leave again, though, and he promised that when he returned he would assist me with training again. I wasn't entirely certain what prompted his interest in me. Perhaps it was because I was Tsunade's last family member, and he loved Tsunade and thus wanted to help me. Maybe it was because he was impressed that I survived on my own for 2 months. After being effectively kidnapped from Konohagakure without any proper training. It might have just been because, and this is what I suspected, he felt an obligation towards me on behalf of Tsunade. That's because his teammate, and the woman he was massively in love with, abandoned me, saying that it was his duty to take care of me. Something he had originally failed at due to the kidnapping, but was now trying to compensate for that. Madara suspected something similar. Madara looked up at me, the moonlight catching his hair and making it glow a pretty silver. He may have been an older man, but there were times where I seemed to forget that. For just a brief moment, I wouldn't see a frail, wrinkled man, but instead I would find myself staring at a young, vibrant Madara at his prime. HMPH. Took you long enough. Come back down, now. How much chakra do you have? Walking down the tree, I dropped the leaves and wiped at my sweat. My feet touched the rocky, cold floor and I cocked my head. About a quarter, Madara-sama. Then that's enough. Have you read the books I've assigned you? Yes, Madara-sama, I responded, suppressing a yawn. One of the advantages to not attending the academy yet was the ability to sleep in, which was much appreciated given my nightly training. During the day, Kushina would usually attend in village missions. She wouldn't be taking any higher level missions until after I started the academy and entered a routine, and left me to my own devices for the most part. I took this time to either train, read, or sleep. Occasionally, I would go to the Hitaki residence to keep up appearances with Kushina. Kakashi was rather entertaining to train with. We had a sort of rivalry going on, which was something I was not against. He was a good way to measure my ability and how much farther I needed to come. His chakra control was superior to my own, but I had larger reserves. He was stronger than me, but I was faster than him. We balanced each other out, so to speak, and he seemed to be the only child I could put up with for so long. It made Kushina happy, as well as Tsukumo, so that was a nice bonus. Madara usually assigned specific routines for me to do outside of our training. Most of the time it was subtle control exercises, but lately it had transitioned into reading texts. The texts consisted of history, strategy and psychology. The history was something I would be forced to learn in the academy, so Madara wanted me to be shown to have a leg up from the others, so I needed to study the material beforehand. Strategy was a necessary trait, and while Madara instructed me personally on it, a little extra viewpoint wouldn't hurt. Psychology was a must for manipulation, a trait I would have to learn slowly. The latest set of readings focused on the treaties with the other villages, and the human psyche of the average civilian. It was kind of scary how specific it was. And how just anyone could up and read it. Manipulation is a key factor to gaining influence, Madara said, as we walked. It would seem he would be multitasking tonight, then. If you let people think too much they're more likely to make a logical choice. If you can guide them to feel a certain way, a way that benefits you, you'll have a much easier time getting what you want. This is what emotional manipulation is all about. The most ideal target would be someone who has little control over their emotions. In the shinobi world, though, the ideal target becomes non-existent. There are some key things that still apply, however. Something I'm certain you've noticed. You need to be charismatic, charming. It's a trait that I lacked, and Hashirama had. It was one of the larger reasons he was chosen over myself. It's not the only form of manipulation, but for your purposes, it would be better to be liked and loved, rather than feared and hated. When you are older and are capable of moving on to the more violent parts of our plans, you will learn to manipulate using the more negative techniques. I blinked in surprise at his bluntness, but nodded my head. I doubted I would ever really need to use anything more than a handful of touches. But it was a good ability to have in case I ever did need to use it. Extremely doubtful that I would, but I would rather have the capabilities of manipulating someone with my body, and never ever using it, than needing to manipulate someone with my body and being unable to. Besides, it was nice that Madara had given me such a large heads up on the lesson. It's true Toby didn't need to use this sort of art, but then again, he wasn't trying to climb Konoha's political ladder either, Madara murmured. I do not know exactly what you'll be facing, and I strongly doubt you'll need to use these techniques for our plans. However, it is my job to ensure that you are not placed in a situation you are ill-prepared for. No matter how low those chances are, or how uncomfortable. And will you be teaching me these techniques yourself? Madara actually looked at me, scrutinizing me. A long minute passed of uncomfortable silence before Madara cracked a small smile. I don't know if I should be flattered you don't seem to mind the idea, or insulted you're so indifferent to it. We will not be going that far into learning. I can show you the basics, minor touching, a few flirtatious moves, but most importantly, I will show you how to dissuade unwanted attention. I cocked my head, flushed in embarrassment, but tried to ignore it. Dissuade unwanted attention. Undoubtedly there will be others who will want to influence you to their advantage. When you reach your older years, your body will become more difficult to control, which is perfectly normal, Madara said patiently. Our main focus will be regaining control over your body and dissuading unwanted attention without hindering any chances of alliances. Then why didn't you just say that in the first place, and bat around the idea of me using my body as a tool? I thought irritably. Sometimes it seemed like Madara just generally enjoyed annoying me and seeing what made me uncomfortable. Which probably wasn't wrong, and he was probably also trying to see just how far I would be willing to go for our cause. After all, he thought he could trust Toby, but look how that turned out. Now we will move on to the water walking exercise, Madara declared, gesturing to the water. I suggest you start bringing several pairs of swimsuits and towels, unless you want to return home wet. When you can hold your position above the water for half an hour without falling in, and being able to ignore the distractions, we will move on to you actually moving across the water. When you can then hold your position above the water for an hour, half ignoring distractions, the rest spent dodging and evading whatever Zetsu and I want to throw at you, we will move on to you performing the leaf exercise on all 10 of your fingers while evading. Begin. I suppressed a sigh and took a tentative step out on the water. I stood on top of the water for a solid minute before Madara whacked me over the head and I fell in. When I came up, spluttering, Madara seemed to smirk at me. You got distracted, try again. Shouldn't that also count as evading you? I asked, annoyed. It's not my fault you were within reaching distance of me. Try going out to the center of the pond. You're just going to throw stuff at me, I accused. Not for the first 30 minutes, Madara promised. I gave a sigh. Yes, Madara-sama. Oh, look at you, Kushina sighed, squeezing my hand as the two of us walked to the academy. Already off and on your way to the academy. I wish I had a camera. Nei-chan, I whined, don't be so embarrassed. Kushina giggled, swooping down and picking me up. She swung me around in her arms and I wiggled in annoyance before she finally set me down. Do you have everything you need? Your lunch? Your pouch? Yes, 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 I sighed, playing the perfect role of a disgruntled child. It wasn't too hard, seeing how Kushina's actions actually were embarrassing and annoying. I didn't truly mind them, finding them rather endearing, but it was still a little much. Kushina held my hand as we walked into the academy. There were a large group of people, both milling around the entrance and actually entering the academy. Kushina guided me through the crowd and into the building. She would walk me to my classroom before leaving for the parent-guardian entrance assembly. When we reached my classroom, Kushina gave me another smile and kneeled down to look at me at eye level. Tonight, there's someone I want you to meet. If that's okay with you. Of course. See you after school, Nei-chan. Kushina kissed my forehead before she left. I entered the classroom, glancing around before I spotted a familiar silver head. I cut through the small throng of girls that had gathered a little ways from him, looking at him and giggling. Some of them shot glares at me, but I ignored them, and sat next to Kakashi. Senju Haim, Kakashi greeted me formally, bowing his head. Hitaki-san, I returned. Did he say Haim? Wait, Senju. Hitaki, as in the White Fang. We both ignored the excited whispers of the hopeful kunoichis. I see you already have a collection of fangirls, Kakashi-kun, I said slyly. Kakashi decided to give me a mild glare. How's Tsukumo-san? 2-san's fine. He wants to thank you and Kushina-san for the dangos, Kakashi said. I nodded. Nei-chan wanted to thank Tsukumo-san for watching over me last time. Are you doing anything after school? Kakashi gave a short nod. Training, you. Nei-chan wants me to meet someone. When I'm done, I'll see if I can train. Same place. As if I would train anywhere else, Kakashi said dryly. My lips twitched. Recognize anyone? Kakashi shook his head, eyeing our growing classroom. The girls were still gathered near us in the front, giggling and blushing. I resisted the urge to roll my eyes and question how they could possibly find Kakashi attractive when they were, what? 6. 7. I knew Kakashi and I were the exceptions to entering the academy, the usual being 6 to 7. It was rare for a 5-year-old to enter, and even rarer that 4-year-olds would. And Kakashi and I were 4. 5, maybe. I was 4 though I would turn 5 soon enough. Kakashi graduated when he was 5, so he only recently turned 5, or would soon enough. That was another odd thing. It was so weird to think that a 4-year-old was entering this academy. That it was just accepted. But I understood the differences in this world from my previous world. It wasn't just the morals and chakra. It was a physical difference. My body felt stronger than it ever had in my previous life. Even stronger, more durable, more flexible, more superior than ever before. It was a fundamental difference. It was like this version of humans were forced to evolve and adapt in different ways. In my world, we didn't have chakra, but we were clever. Most of the time, at least. We grew in a different way than these versions of humans did. It was so. Well, my eyes rested on a couple of familiar faces. Kurenai and Asuma were in our class. I was fairly confident that Obito, Rin, and Guy would be joining us too, along with a few others. This would be a prime chance to create alliances with them, seeing how they would become rather excellent shinobi and kunoichi when they were older. Or at least most of them would. Rin would die, so an alliance with her would be useless in the long run. Do you know how long our lunch break is? I asked Kakashi, glancing at him. Kakashi didn't respond for a moment, his eyes focused on the board at the front. An hour, I think. That's a long break. It seemed like Kakashi wanted to shrug, but decided against it. My lips twitched as I started to recognize what was going on. He's finally started to try and hide his emotions, I mused. That explains why he was so open the first time we met. Now he'll try and become the perfect shinobi like his father. When Tsukumo dies, I believe a month or so around Kakashi's graduation date, he'll try and suppress all emotions to surpass his father. That's what Madara wants me to do. At least on the inside. On the outside, I will need to be charming and charismatic. It looks like I'll have to wear a mask for a while longer. But when our plan has succeeded, I won't have to anymore. No one will have to. Our world will be perfect, or at the very least, on its way to perfection. I felt a thrill run through me at that, a smirk crawling its way on my face as my gaze darkened. What do you think? I blinked, the smirk vanishing as I tried to recall what Kakashi was saying. Sounds good. Kakashi nodded. Good. So eat your lunch 30 minutes before the lunch period and we can spend an hour training. Oh, was that what he was asking for? Simple enough. I was going to do that anyway. What did you bring for lunch, anyway? Kakashi opened his backpack that he had slung behind his chair and pulled out a small bento box. I went ahead and pulled out my own bento, unwrapping the orange-red scarf Kushina had tied around it. When I finished unwrapping it, I noticed a small note tucked under it. Suppressing the urge to groan, and ignoring Kakashi's amused snickers, I opened the letter. Good luck. I know you can do it. Love, Kushina. Don't say a word, I hissed out, blushing brightly. Kakashi looked immensely amused as he started to unwrap his own bento from the white scarf Tsukumo had tied around it. And when he was done, there, dead center, was a note. I giggled and Kakashi looked aghast. He quickly read it, and shoved it in his pockets and turned to me. This never happened. I don't even know what you're talking about, I said. Kakashi seemed to grin at me, but before he could say anything else, the teacher entered the room. He was a tall, lean man, and wore a chunin flack. His hair was a dull blonde, and his brown eyes scanned over us. Everyone, take a seat. A small hush fell across the classroom as all the children filled up the seats, with only a few being left empty. Kakashi and I both set our lunches underneath our desks, and unintentionally, with perfect sync we sat up straight, folded our hands into our laps and focused on the teacher. My name is Choyaku Aki. You may refer to me as Aki-sensei, or Choyaku-sensei if you must. I will be your sensei for the next year, unless you are one of the very few to graduate earlier than that, Aki said, his eyes settling on Kakashi and myself before he continued to sweep over the classroom. The academy has an adjusting routine, depending on where you are. In order to graduate, you will need to take and pass the exams. Exams will be held twice a year, one within the next week, and one at the end of the school year. You are not required to take the exams until the end of the 4 years you have attended the academy. This year, we will be focusing on building up your strength, knowledge, basic taijutsu, and at the end of the year, we will be touching over chakra. Your second year will consist of learning chakra control, taijutsu, basic infiltration, espionage and history. Your third year will move on to the basic ninjutsu, genjutsu, survival, taijutsu and more on history. Your fourth year will be more advanced ninjutsu, genjutsu, survival, taijutsu, history and the inner workings of Konoha. If you choose to stay that long. Right now, I see a total of 129 potential shinobi. By the fourth year, I suspect we will be down to 15, maybe 20. Quiet whispers broke out and many of the students started to glance around nervously. Aki pressed on, unhindered. The life of a shinobi is a difficult one. You will need to be disciplined, motivated, and sincere. I know the majority of you signed up because you thought it was cool or fun, but I will tell you now, you were wrong. Now I want everyone to get out of their seats and follow me. We'll test and see where you are already. The students all began to stand up and push in their chairs, Kakashi and I exchanged solemn glances, and we lined up in front of Aki. He stared at us another moment before the door to the front part of our classroom opened and a young Uchiha boy entered. He was out of breath, panting and blushing brightly. Sorry I'm late, sensei. Ka-san and Tu-san are out on a mission, so no one remembered to wake me up in time and… Uchiha Obito, Aki said levelly, please join your fellow classmates in line after dropping your things off at an empty desk. Obito sheepishly nodded his head and did as he asked, choosing to stand in the back of line, while Kakashi and I remained in the front. Kakashi gave a quiet HMPH, and turned away from Obito, muttering under his breath, late on the first day. How childish. I chose not to respond, staying silent as I followed behind Aki. The class slowly trailed behind Aki, some of them already chattering amiably and laughing quietly. Aki guided us out of the academy building into the large training grounds behind the academy. There was a fairly big track, some hurdles placed off to the side, and in the center of the track were two chalk-drawn rings. Most likely for sparring purposes. Everyone line up at the start line, Aki toned, pulling out a clipboard and stopwatch from his flak. Kakashi and I were the first ones to reach the line, and we both stood side by side. We exchanged glances and I felt a taunting smirk on my face. Ready to lose again? I asked, a mocking tone in my voice. This time I'll win, Kakashi said arrogantly, already lowering himself. I mimicked his position and started building up chakra in my calves and the bottom of my feet. Make way for the next Hokage. Kakashi turned to glare at Obito as he shoved his way through the crowd to the front. He glanced at us and smirked. I hope you two aren't prepared to win or anything. I'll be the fastest. Kakashi didn't say anything, choosing to ignore Obito and focus on the track. I gave the boy an amused look, a bit disbelieving. It was ironic how the future Toby was currently bragging about being the next Hokage. Mistaking my amusement for belittlement, Obito bristled and glared at me. I blinked in surprise before shrugging and focusing back on the track. 7 laps around the track, Aki said flatly. Go. Kakashi and I sprinted out of the group of children and within moments we were already halfway across the track. I pushed an extra burst of chakra into my feet and broke out ahead of him, my legs pumping as I felt the pleasant, burning chill of the chakra racing through my system. My feet hit the ground, digging into the soft earth before propelling me forward. I was the first to cross the finish line, and I reached the group of children soon afterwards, weaving through them and sprinting ahead. It seems Kakashi, Asuma and myself are the only ones who know how to channel chakra into our feet, I thought, noticing how Asuma was third, though he was a fair bit behind. I don't see Guy in our class, so I can't gauge how fast I really am at this point. I'm surprised Asuma knows though, as he always came across as the lazy sort, but I suppose Hiruzen must have trained him somewhat. Kurenai comes from a lesser clan, Genjutsu, I think, so I'm not sure if she should already know how to do this. I heard the soft pounding of shoes behind me as Kakashi started to catch up. My eyes narrowed and I channeled another burst of chakra into my feet and took off. Kakashi can keep his taijutsu advantage. I am not giving up my superior speed after that hell Madara's put me through already to get it. And the hell I will continue to go through to keep it. It seemed that there weren't any other clan children in my class, at least none of the major ones. And if they were, they obviously weren't motivated and thus probably not worth the attention. An annoyance, but nothing too bad. At least it made my job easier. Madara wouldn't want me wasting my time on those that didn't even make an impact in our plans. The less people in my class, the less I would need to interact with on a daily basis. Around and around Kakashi and I went until we finally finished our 7th lap, me winning of course. I stumbled to a slow jog, then walked, then stopped, after reaching the finish, grinning triumphantly at Kakashi. He shot me a glare, but the amusement in his eyes made it lose its impact. I moved to stand by Aki, and he moved towards me. Kakashi held out his right hand, his 2 fingers extended, and I reached out with my right hand, my own fingers extended. We hooked our fingers, grinning at each other. "Thanks for the challenge," I said. "Thanks for the race," Kakashi returned. "I'm not surprised you two already know how to do that," Aki said, quivering an eyebrow. "Hokage-sama wanted me to talk to you after school, but seeing how everyone else is still on their second, third, or in Asuma-kun's case, 5th lap, I think now will do just fine. I take it you both intend to graduate early." Kakashi nodded, and I hesitated before nodding. I wasn't sure what Madara wanted me to do exactly. He said we would discuss it after my first day, but I imagined he wanted me to graduate fairly early, too. "After I finish evaluating where everyone is," Aki said, "you two will need to stay after to do a further evaluation. Depending on where you are, you may be switching to one of the more advanced classes." "Yes, Aki-sensei," Kakashi and I said. "Go ahead and cool down. I suspect we'll have a bit," Aki said dryly. Kakashi and I started to climb back up the grassy hill to the academy and chose a nice, warm, sunny spot. We sat in front of each other first, spreading our legs out so the bottom of our shoes touched. Kakashi offered his hands and I grabbed them, before I started to pull him towards me. We had developed our own cool-down routine after our numerous training sessions. Tsukumo had assisted us. After counting to 45, we switched and Kakashi pulled me towards him. Another 45 seconds later, we rolled our bodies to sit shoulder to shoulder and stretched our legs perpendicular to our body. We began to reach for our toes. I was able to wrap my hands around my feet, and Kakashi was just able to wrap his hands around his toes. As we continued to stretch, the rest of the students started to finish. By the time we were all stretched out, only a few more students were on their last lap. Most of them were red-faced, and panting heavily. Even Asuma looked a bit winded and tired, but Kakashi and I were relatively unaffected. Sure, we were still sweaty, but we had our time to cool down and catch our breath. Aki remained mostly indifferent, merely marking down the times next to each name. The last student to arrive was a nameless civilian, who was tittering on the brink of falling over when he stumbled across the line. "All right, now we'll move on to upper body strength," Aki said, turning and climbing up the hill. "Follow me." Groans drifted around the students, while others looked despairingly. Kakashi shot me a smug look and I folded my arms across my chest and pouted. It felt childish and silly, but I had to consciously remember I was supposed to be a child. Kakashi always had me beat when it came to upper body strength, and he probably always would. Something he would lord over me, and the fact that he was already a couple centimeters taller than me. Aki took us back up to the school, where we could see some metal bars drilled into the side of the school. Some were stacked higher up than others, and they were positioned in a staircase fashion. "Everyone gets in line. First, you'll see how many pull-ups you can do. Second time, you'll see how long you can keep your chin above the bar," Aki said. Each of the children filed in line, Kakashi in front, with myself behind him. The more exhausted children tried their damnedest to be last in line, but Obito, despite still red-faced and sweaty, made a beeline for third. "I guess you're not so bad," Obito whispered to us. "But running is girly anyway. It's all about the pull-ups." I shot him another amused look, wondering how he could actually say it with such conviction, like he sincerely believed what he was saying. Kakashi went first, leaping up onto the highest bar without any assistance or prompting. Then he started to pull himself up, then lower back down. I could see his small muscles working and I could practically feel the chakra radiate from him. He made it 5 more past his old record of 53, before he dropped to the ground, panting heavily. He shot me a smug look and I glowered at him. When he walked past us, I stuck my nose up in the air and jumped up to the highest bar. Begin, Aki said. Channeling chakra into my arms, I began pulling myself up. I made it to 47, a new record for me, before I had to stop and drop back down to the ground. I wiped away the sweat on my brow and pursed my lips, making my way to the back of the line. Kakashi greeted me with a small dip of his head. Congrats on the new record, I said. Same to you, Kakashi said, dropping his voice to a quiet whisper. How far do you think they'll place us? 4th year, I said immediately, thinking how Kakashi graduated within a year. At least for you. I can't say for certain where they'd place me. Have you tried any ninjutsu? Kakashi asked. I hesitated. A little. My wood style, actually, but, nothing else. I've started substitution in genjutsu cloning, Kakashi admitted. No change in chakra, though. I rubbed the back of my head sheepishly. It's not like I did it on purpose. I just wanted to see my nature, and when I was outside of Konoha, I just had to use it. Nei-chan told me she would help me with my substitution and stuff when we actually got to the stuff in the academy. Kakashi nodded his head in understanding. Tu-san promised to start teaching me chakra change after I graduated. Good luck with that promise, I thought dryly. Obito joined us about that time, flushed, with his hands stuffed into his pockets. So how are you liking these assessments, next Hokage? Kakashi asked sardonically. Shut up, Obito muttered. I'm Senju Naasica, I said pointedly, not really in the mood for a pissing contest between the two. This is Hitaki Kakashi. Obito blinked at us. Senju. Hitaki, I've heard those names before. I'm Uchiha Obito. I would hope you've heard those names before, Kakashi said, rolling his eyes. You idiot, the Senju founded Konoha with the Uchiha, and Konoha's White Fang is Hitaki Sakumo. I'm his son. At the mention of his father, Kakashi's chest puffed up with pride and he looked down on Obito from over his nose. Obito glared at him, blushing brightly from embarrassment at his lack of knowledge. It wasn't really his fault. I doubt any of the other children, except maybe Guy, were as obsessed with training as Kakashi and myself were. So do you know anyone else in this class, Obito-kun? Kakashi-kun and I only knew each other when we came in here. Obito blinked at me, forgetting his anger at Kakashi for the moment. Oh, yeah. There's Ain Takashi, he's a blacksmith's son, Tu-san buys his weapons from him. Kinda a big-headed guy. Sarutobi Asuma, I've seen him and his little brother around the Eastern Park a lot. Obito continued to list everyone, pointing out a few. I didn't recognize any of them except the obvious ones, Asuma, and Kurenai. Obito didn't know some of them, one of them being Rin, which surprised me, but I suppose it was this class where they met or something, and by the time he finished, Kakashi was at the front of the line again. Kakashi shot me another smug look, as he showed, yet again, how superior his upper body strength was to mine. The brat. We continued the assessments, doing sit-ups and push-ups, then testing our flexibility. I was the most flexible, Closing parenthesis. By the time the rest of the student body was finished, it was roughly half an hour before lunch and Aki finally brought us back inside. Most of the students were struggling to stand, and when they entered the classroom, they slouched in their seats. Kakashi and I gladly took our seats and we pulled out our lunches, setting them in our lap and nibbling on them as discreetly as we could. Aki stood up at the front of the classroom, pulling out a new piece of chalk and starting to write. We'll first begin with math until lunch. Everyone, please take out your notebook and pens and listen closely, I'll only explain it once. I fought back a smile as I saw several of the students looked horrified at that. Just like in the Shinobi world, you'll be forced to learn and adapt to different knowledge. Thankfully math was always something I've been good at. At lunch, Kakashi and I practically sprinted outside. Where do you wanna go? I asked, ducking down another hallway, Kakashi right behind me. Let's get to the roof. No distractions there, Kakashi suggested. He added, and no fangirls were left unsaid. Ever since Kakashi had shown just how capable he was, his collection of fangirls had risen dramatically. The moment we were outside, we turned on our heels and leapt up onto the wall, starting to race up it vertically. We were on the roof before any of the other children even made it outside. I held up my hand and Kakashi gave me a quick high five. Help me practice with substitution, Kakashi asked. Sure. I'll throw something at you, and you try to substitute in time, I said slyly. Kakashi hesitated. Give me a 5-second warning before you throw. I'm not that good. I said, walking around the roof and picking up a handful of pebbles. Kakashi stood a good distance from me and I measured the pebble in my hand. My lips quivered down into a frown before I said, warning. Then, once I counted to 5, I threw the rock as hard as I could without chakra enhancements. Kakashi gave a subtle wince when it hit his shoulder, before he substituted away with another rock. Ow. Don't throw it so hard. The pain will help you remember, I said, smiling sadistically as I recalled Madara's words. Kakashi snorted. Bring it on, then. With pleasure. That's it for today. Class dismissed. Kakashi and I waited in our seats as the class started to file out. Well, I waited in my seat, while Kakashi hid under the table so the fangirls would think he had left. It took some time, but it was eventually Astu and Aki. We approached Aki and Aki set his clipboard down, giving his amused looks. By your physical scores alone, you could make it to 3rd year, easily. I'll be testing your chakra control, though. Do you two know the leaf exercise? I can hold 7 leaves total on each finger, I said. I can hold all 10, Kakashi said smugly. Only 'cause you don't have as much chakra as me, I snorted. Please. In a couple years I'll have more chakra than you. Don't try that with me now, Kakashi retorted. I call that bull to that, I giggled. Aki cleared his throat. I only need to see you hold a single leaf to your forehead for a minute, each. Then I'll have you both fill out a worksheet to the best of your ability. Aki held out 2 individual leaves and Kakashi and I took them carefully. I stuck mine to my forehead, suddenly grateful Madara had made me learn the leaf exercise. Without him, I would have undoubtedly failed this portion of the test due to my insane reserves and lack of finite control over them. The minute ticked by slowly, but we both succeeded in the task. The worksheet was a simple worksheet filled with basic algebraic, projectile motion, and estimation problems. It also had a handful of history questions and 1 essay. I would roughly place the difficulty at middle school level in my old world. Once it was completed, Kakashi actually finished ahead of me, and we turned it in. Aki graded each sheet quickly. Finally, you'll spar, Aki said, the moment he finished grading the papers. Tomorrow, I'll inform the 2 of you of your new placements, where you'll be and when you'll be there. Yes, sensei. The door was unlocked when I entered the apartment. I opened it slowly, peering in and the scent of cooked meat drifted to my nose. A pleasant smile found its way across my lips. Stepping in, I closed the door behind me and took off my shoes, slipping into slippers and saying, Tadaima. Okarinasai. I heard Kushina respond from the kitchen. How was school? Good. They want to advance me and Kakashi-kun. I don't know how far, yet, but I'll find out tomorrow. Congratulations. Is that why you stayed after? I was just about to send out a couple clones to look for you. Yes, sorry for worrying you, Nei-chan, I said. Kushina stepped out of the kitchen, her green apron spotless, but her hands covered in sauce and other ingredients. She beamed at me. I wasn't worried. I knew the Anbu were still watching over you. I frowned at that. How long will they keep watching me? Kushina frowned as well. I think they officially end at midnight tonight. I see. I'm going to go ahead and wash up. If I take it, dinner won't be long. Kushina's frown disappeared and she nodded. Right. Did you spar today? You're covered in scratches. At this rate, we'll have to buy antibiotic ointment in bulk. Probably wouldn't hurt, I said, smiling sheepishly. Kakashi-kun and I sparred today. Kushina rolled her eyes, turning away and heading back into the kitchen. Honestly, you two, when you're done, go ahead and set the table for 3, please. I sat at the kitchen table, watching as Kushina sat down a large steaming bowl of rice. She untied her apron, hanging it on the nearby rack before there was a knock at the door. Come on in. I couldn't see from my seat who was entering, but their chakra signature felt vaguely familiar. When they turned around the corner and entered the kitchen, I blinked in surprise. Minato gave me a sunny smile, his blue eyes twinkling with warm amusement. Kushina gave him a coy smile. How do you always manage to arrive just in time for food? Minato blushed and rubbed the back of his head sheepishly. Sorry, Kushina-chan. I guess I just have great timing. Kushina rolled her eyes. HMPH. Take a seat, then. Have you met Naasica-chan before? We have, I answered as Minato took a seat in between mine and Kushina's normal seats. He's Jiraiya-sama's student. Right. It's been a while, Minato-san. Minato gave me a wink as Kushina sat down at the table. Not that long, Naasica-hime. I'm glad to see you well. I know Jiraiya-sensei was worried about you, but he and I were out of the village on a mission when we finally got word. Thank you for your concern. I'm sorry for the worry, I said politely, bowing my head. Minato looked embarrassed, another light blush dusting across his features. There's no need to be so polite, home. I mean, unless you really want to. No wonder he was a favored cage, I thought, amused. He's so completely open and there's a certain boyish charm to him. And Madara wants me to be charismatic like him. It'd be curious to see how his presence shifts when he's on the battlefield. I'm sure there's a lot I could learn from him, too. Sorry, I squeaked, forcing a blush to cross over my own cheeks and I lowered my eyes. I'm, not very used to you yet, so I'm sorry if I came across as overly polite, or distant. Minato said, raising his hands in a calming gesture, it's quite alright. Kushina-chan told me that you joined the academy today, yes? Oh, yes. What was that like? Minato asked, his tone showing genuine interest, and he leaned forward. Kushina seemed rather pleased at this question, her eyes softening with warmth when she looked at him. Oh. It was interesting. Kakashi-kun and I were rather advanced compared to the rest of the class, I said, so Aki-sensei made us stay after to take this test. We'll find out tomorrow how advanced we are. Kakashi-kun, Minato said, blinking at that. You mean Hitaki Kakashi? That's right, Kushina said, glancing over at Minato in realization. You're privately tutoring Tsukumo's son. I almost forgot that. It's been, what? A year now. Minato smiled and nodded his head. That's right. I owed Tsukumo-san a rather huge favor, and Tsukumo knew how much I want to become a sensei, so it's a win-win for everyone. You must be the friend Kakashi-kun mentioned. He didn't specify a name, so I wasn't sure. I suppose so. May I eat now? Oh. Minato and Kushina said in surprise, both of them blushing. I almost forgot about the food, Kushina admitted sheepishly. Go ahead, Na-chan. I've entered the academy, I told Madara. My legs were stretched on either side of me as I performed the splits. I lowered the upper half of my body to the ground, pressing my belly into the dirt, and stretched out my arms. I began to count to 60. Graduate as early as you can, Madara said immediately. I blinked in surprise at that, lifting my head up from the floor to look at him. You don't want me to try and make alliances with the others. Are there any clan heirs in your class? At my head shake, Madara raised an eyebrow. Then why do you want to stay? Well, Kakashi, Asuma, Kurenai, Rin and Obito are in my class, I pointed out. And they'll all become exceptional shinobi. Obito even joins our cause. He does not, Madara spat. He betrayed us in the end. His heart was too weak. I have been considering what to do with him and the Tobi persona, and I have come to a conclusion. He will not become Tobi. I sat up straight, my eyes widening. Obito not becoming Tobi. In what world was that? Did that mean Madara didn't want a Tobi? That he would not be forming the Akatsuki? Or did he think someone else should become Tobi? But who? It would have to be an Uchiha, someone who could wield the Sharingan, at the very least. But I couldn't think of anyone off the top of my head. Did Madara want to kidnap a young Uchiha child and have me train and raise him to be an obedient tool? Maybe. A frown marred my features. Who do you wish to become, Tobi, Shukun? Madara appraised me with a calculating look. When you are ready, I will tell you. For now, I want you to focus on your training and graduate as early as you can. You need power, woman. Much of it. Yes, Madara-sama. When you are done stretching, I believe it's time to start weapon training. The first weapon you will learn will be the gunbai. Your war fan? I questioned. But, I don't have a wind nature. Madara shook his head. It doesn't matter if you don't naturally have nature. When I'm done with you, you'll be able to use it in the fire nature. It will take more chakra, yes, but you have plenty to spare. I bit my bottom lip, bringing my legs together and rolling over onto my belly. I arched my back, walking back with my hands and curling my legs up. I counted to 30, the tips of my toes reaching the top of my head, before I relaxed. For my final stretch, the scorpion pose, I rested on my arms on the ground before bending them at 90 degrees. I put all my weight on my forearms and lifted myself off the ground. I could feel the pleasant burn in my abdominal area and I let out a slow breath, willing myself to remain in position. I curled my body, creating a backward C, and looking up, I found my toes and feet above me. I counted to 60 before I relaxed and stood up. Madara had watched, his eyes distant and thoughtful. You aren't as strong, in terms of muscle, as Hashirama, and I doubt you ever will be, but you're already more flexible than he was. I took the compliment gladly, lowering my gaze and feeling my cheeks warm. Thank you, Madara-sama. But, Madara-sama, I must confess I'm confused. You told me long ago that I would not be able to separate my chakra. At least not for a long time, that I would be forced to use the Mokuton for at least a decade, or so. Madara looked pleased that I remembered his words. I did. And I meant it. Under normal circumstances you couldn't. This is because it took Hashirama quite some time to figure it out, and I assumed it would take you even longer, or roughly about the same, on your own. But now, you see, you have me. Hashirama long ago explained to me how he was able to learn other natures when we founded Konoha. However, Naasica, you are forbidden from showing anyone else you are capable of doing this. Yes, Madara-sama. I will give you the basic lesson in changing your chakra first, and then we will move on to properly holding a gunboat. Yes, Madara-sama. Madara turned away. Using his kana as a makeshift cane, he began to walk towards the cave entrance. I followed docilely behind him. Chakra is the spiritual energy in combination with our physical energy. Each individual person has a different combination of the mix, and a different form. This is how chakra sensors are able to differentiate from one chakra to the next precisely and consistently. Chakra is more defined than a thumbprint. Our natures develop from genes, this is how Kekkei Genkais are passed down. From our natures, we have a greater affinity for using different kinds of ninjutsu, and will have a harder time learning others. For example, a natural water type would have more difficulty learning a fire type rather than a wind type. It does not, however, make it impossible. Chakra is still, in essence, a combination of our physical and spiritual energy, and each nature depends on consistency. The wind type requires a ratio of 6:4, with 6 being the spiritual energy and 4 being the physical. I chewed over that. It wasn't like anything I had read or heard about consistency. Ratio. I knew chakra was a combination of physical and spiritual energy, but I didn't realize that chakra natures depended on the ratio, too. I've never heard of something like that, I said carefully, following Madara outside the cave. He stopped, looking up at the night sky. Looking more closely, I could see that he had a small, smug smile on his face. He said, "I would be surprised if you had." It was something Hashirama figured out, but he couldn't accurately prove it, so he never voiced it. I, however, did prove it. You cannot naturally change your given chakra nature, but you can adjust the ratio. It's something we learn to do subconsciously when learning a new technique, something the Uchiha do when we perform a technique we had just witnessed. It will be difficult to force, but necessary. It's the only way you can change your chakra nature. How will I know I reached the right ratio? I asked hesitantly. Madara looked back down at me. I will be able to tell. We will train on ratios next time, though. Zetsu, bring me the stick. Zetsu appeared through the cave wall, carrying a smooth, perfectly symmetrical stick and holding it out. Madara took it and Zetsu went back inside the cave, still smiling creepily. Madara held the stick out to me, and I took it carefully, surprised at how heavy it was. Before you can hold a gun you must first know how to hold it by the handle. Are you right-handed or left? I stared down at the stick. Naturally left-handed, but I am learning to use my right, as well. Good. Continue with that. First we will try two-handed grips, this is for more powerful attacks, and then we will move on to one-handed grips. Place your left hand